Hi, and welcome to Discover Torah and Gear. I'm your host, Rabbi David Katz. Okay, please see the link that I put in the browser, or whatever you call it, the little chat box here. And we are going over a shir from Pirkei Shoshanim, written by Chad Blumenstiel. And it covers, this is the second shir they did in their series, and the PDF is on the internet. And again, I provided you with that link. And we're going to discuss, I don't know if this is going to be a one-time class or if we'll do a series. I'm not sure yet. But has everybody had the link? Can you click 1 or 2 for me if you have the link open on your browser? Everybody should have it open. All right? And again, there's a lot to be said, but we'll keep it focused for today. Turn to page 7 and type 7 once you're on page 7. So I know that you're on page 7 by the fact that you type 7, which ironically enough stands for the 7 laws of Noah. And yesterday was June 7th, and the next month will be the 7th month of July. All kind of 7s over here. It's also 2017, which has a 7 in it. All kinds of good 7s. And then did you know that the gematria of 7 is 7? The numerical value of 7 is 7. Did you know that? And that's right. The year is 5777. And that's 5 numbers, which 7 minus 5 is 2. And 2 is the gematria of 1 with the kola. And 1 represents one God. So we're not doing too bad over here. And then, of course, the detractors are going to say, oh, that's quacky Kabbalah. He's not even giving over real Kabbalah. The gematria of 7 is not 7. All right, let's go. So turn to page 7. And look where it says, do we accept Ger Toishiv in our times? Yeah? The answer is that we do not accept Ger Toishiv nowadays. The Talmud, which if you see that little 7, oh, how beautiful is that? Another 7. It's madness, I tell you. It's madness. Do you see the little footnote 7? Right next to the word the Talmud, you'll see a little 7. Like I said, 7s are coming everywhere. Type 7 when you see the little 7. Let's go. Hurry up. Hurry up. Type 7 when you see the little 7 next to the word the Talmud, underneath where it says, do we accept Ger Toishiv in our times? Oh, come on, people. Are you on page... Wait a second. Yeah. Wait, what happened here? Go to page 7. The bottom of the pages. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, no. Did I give the wrong link? I gave the wrong link. Oh, why? Pardonnez-moi. Whoa. I know there's a chart. That's the first lesson they have on the internet. There it is, lesson 2. Okay, now turn to page 7, Jacques, Justin, and now tell me if you don't see that little 7. We can all do tshuva. That's the lesson here. We can all do tshuva. Type 7 when you see 7 on 7. All right. See, I'm not so much of a liar after all, even though my skeptics like to say I am. Let's go. So they got the 7. Go into the footnotes. What does 7 take you to? Let's hear it. Everyone type and say in your own space, Erechin 29a. Erechin 29a. I would love to talk about Erechin 29a, but I'm not going to. So what they're bringing here is the famous source that there's no Ger Toshev until Zman Yovel. As it says in Erechin 29a. Now, I will say a little idea here. Erechin 29a is talking about a certain Ger Toshev. The idea of a runaway slave who comes to Israel, to which the Rambam even calls him a Ger Tzedek under certain conditions, where he flees from his master. But if someone just comes to Israel to be a certain servitude, then they are Ger Toshav. And we don't have Ger Toshav like that until Zman Yovel Noach. Again, I just gave over two specific types of Ger Toshav. Now, do you guys read English? Type 1 or 2. Do you read English? And you realize, look at the last paragraph on this page. This similarity of language called Gezerah Sheva in the system of Talmudic interpretation indicates that the two concepts share similar restrictions. In this case, the law of the Ger Toshav is similar to the law of freeing an indentured servant. It only applies when the Jubilee cycle is in full observance. Did I just say anything contrary to that? 1 or 2? 1 or 2? So apparently we are all on the same page here, that Rabbi David Katz would agree there is no Ger Toshav like this today. When it says in our day and time, without a true return, turn to page 8, leadership of the land of Israel, we do not have full observance of the Jubilee. Therefore, we cannot accept a Ger Toshav for a based in today. The Rambam codifies this as law in his Mishnah Torah. Does Rabbi David Katz concur? 1 or 2? Does Rabbi David Katz concur? 1 or 2? And the answer is 1. So there is no Ger Toshav like that today. All right. Now we're going to go down to where it says the application of Ger Toshav for modern Noahides. Type 1 if you're with me. Hurry up. Type 1 if you're with me. Let's go. Hurry up. The idea that, now, again, I'm going to really do kind of a lot of things here. I want to point out, number 1, the truth. And I also want to point out the deception. Type 1. The idea that in our times, the Noahide laws must be accepted before a Beis Din. Who knows what Beis Din is? What is Beis Din? This is a major ikker here. What is Beis Din? Type 2, because you don't know. Type 2, because you don't know. So the fact is, there are Svei Dinim, Jacques. Svei Dinim. There is more than one kind of Beis Din. There is Beis Din Yovel, where we keep tabs on our non-idolater friends, type 1. And the Beis Din thoroughly checks someone. Then there's something called in my own words, I'll call it a Stam Beis Din. But you won't find the distinctions in the Rishonim and Achronim. From context, you will understand what a Beis Din means. Jacques, if you came to my house and you claimed that I stole 30 shekels from you, type 1. Jacques claims I stole 30 shekels from him. And I said, no, Jacques, I didn't steal 30 shekels from you, type 1. Jacques said, yes, Rabbi Katz, I firmly believe that you did steal 30 shekels from me, type 1. Then I would say to Jacques, then would you like to convene on a Beis Din? Shall we form a Beis Din in Safed, where the 30 shekels apparently were stolen? And Jacques would say, yes, Rabbi Katz, I do want a Beis Din. I want Chaim Chlorfine, Amnon Goldberg, and Bob Jones to sit as a panel, and we're going to discuss if Rabbi Katz stole my 30 shekels or not, right? Now, you may argue with that case, and you'll say, well, they should go to a proper Beis Din and spot, blah, blah, blah. The point of the mashal of Pshuto is anytime you sit three Jews together to form a mini court for a lot of different halachic aspects, that's called a Beis Din. That is not to be confused with the Beis Din of, let's say, if I were to take Rabbi Shmendrik to a real Beis Din and spot for what I believe to be a Chilul Hashem, that's a higher level Beis Din. And then there's a Beis Din type of Yovel, where it's the time of the temple. Can you understand how there are different levels of Beis Din? From the most authoritative to a panel of judges, Dayanim, to the very lowest level, three Jews who are sitting in a canoe, fishing, discussing something halachic. Type 1. So when we say Noahide laws must be accepted before a Beis Din is proposed by the Vishav HaKoyin, and you'll read footnote 12, then it begs the question, what kind of Beis Din was Vishav HaKoyin speaking about? Type 1, for the fact that that is a valid and important question. In fact, it is the question. Keep note on that question. A collection of, continuing reading, a collection of responsa. What is a collection of responsa? Does anyone know what a collection of responsa is? It sounds intimidating and scary. Type 1. So when you look in footnote 13, which, by the way, there's a hold on a second. We go to 13. All right. Responsa are halachic decisions on specific matters by poskim, decisors of Jewish law. However, not all responsa are accepted as definitive. Responsa are like court decisions in the secular world. Some set precedent and become part of standard halacha, while some may be rejected or overturned. Whether or not a responsa, singular of responsa, is accepted as definitive is dependent primarily upon two factors. Does the posik's understanding of his sources match the analysis of the majority of earlier and later authorities? And two, are his conclusions cited or relied upon by any later authorities? Did you just hear what I just said? Because that is going to be the basis of everything that your friends at Ask Noah and other organizations are like that are going to base this on. Because what our author here is doing in the footnotes that nobody reads, at least not with a keen eye, because you can't afford to leave even one of them out, because that's where he's putting his little injections into. Again, just keep that in mind. Even if you just, when I say 13, go back to 13, go back to 13. Type 1. Again, I can't explain it yet because it's got to come into context. So when I say refer to 13, then refer to 13. Okay. Now he's going to get into the Vishav HaKohen. By Rabbi Raphael HaKoyen Ziskin. This proposition made parenthetically in a larger responsum on the laws of business partnerships between Jews and non-Jews rests on the following assumptions. Ger Toishiv is not merely a legal designation, It is a religious status to which one converts. Becoming a ger toishev is as much a conversion to a new religion as is converting to Judaism. This is why the Sheva mitzvahs must be accepted for a Beis Din. Just as conversion to Judaism required accepting the 613 mitzvahs of the Jews before a Beis Din, so to a ger toishev, and by the way, the word two is spelled wrong. It should be 200. If you want to get technical, I can get technical too. Must accept the 7 mitzvahs for a Beis Din. I mean, isn't that the kind of tax they're doing on us, by the way? Even though the halacha is like the Rambam. Notice the footnote 15. It's also quoted wrong. It should be 14.8. It's 14.9. Just making a point. That we do not accept the ger toishev for a Beis Din today for the sake of living in Israel. Nevertheless, some aspects of ger toishev status still apply today. Did he just say that some aspects of ger toishev status still apply today? Am I dreaming? This is according to the Ravid, the Rambam's main disputant. A non-Jew to become a Nayachide must still go through the ger toishev process and convert by appearing for a Beis Din. This is the only true and reliable acceptance of the Sheva mitzvahs in our times. Now, did you just hear what I said? Hurry up and type 1. Do you see the number 17? Type 1. In fact, type 17. Type 17 if you see 17. Go to 17. Look what he says. And be prepared to be shocked. This is not clearly articulated in the Vishav HaKohen, yet is intrinsic to his case. It is also discussed here because it is a point made frequently by those proponents of accepting the Sheva mitzvahs before Beis Din. Do I need to even say anything here? I mean, seriously. This is beyond shocking. And I haven't even begun to tell you the problems of this. In fact, we're going to make this class a new series. This is going to be a series. How many pages are there? Too many. We got to get through 17, about 9 pages. So it could even be like a 9-class series. Okay, so we're gonna focus on this. Do you see the 17 footnote as being literally on the level of insanity? By the way, he wasn't talking about this or anything, but we're going to pretend that he was talking about it because we think people are talking about it. So we're going to talk about it as if he was talking about it, but he was never talking about it. That's first problem. Number 2, what does Beis Din mean? What did the Vishav HaKohen mean by Beis Din? Turn back to page 8. How many of you think from reading this, right? We're talking to a bunch of non-Jews, right? And there's a big rabbi in the room, and we're going to talk about the Vishav HaKohen. And Justin read footnote number 12, and he said, oh, yeah, you mean Vishav HaKohen 38? Yeah, I thought so. That's right. Right? How many of you would pay your $500 to go through this class, which is what they charge, ish, give or take? How do you feel about the Vishav HaKohen? And we're going to reject the Vishav HaKohen. In fact, let's just read on a little further. Ready? Go back to page 9. Go to page 9. The second, whatever point it was. What point was that? Second, the third point. No, second or third? The third point. Without accepting the 7 mitzvahs before a Beis Din, a non-Jew can never receive full merit for fulfilling the laws and become Mechasidium Ha'olam, of the pious of the non-Jews. Okay, ready? Are you ready? However, pretending that we understood what was just written here, okay, just pretend that you understand that. However, this, unless you do understand it, which we're going to find out. However, this entire proposition cannot be accepted as halarka. There are two main reasons why. Everyone type 13. Everyone type 13. Because we're getting ready to go back to 13. Remember 13? Everyone everyone look at 13 and be able to toggle back and forth. Ready? Here's the reasons why this is not halakha. I'm now on page 9, but just keep 13 in your brain. Significant commentaries on the sources relied upon by the Vishav HaKohen, both by experts before and after the Vishav HaKohen, contradict the Vishav HaKohen's application and understanding of those sources. In the 220 years since its publication, no later authorities have quoted the Vishav HaKohen's proposition as halarka. In fact, later authorities have reached conclusions contrary to those of the Vishav HaKohen. So the author told you why theoretically something would or would not be halacha, and then that author showed us, you see, the Vishav HaKohen falls victim to 13. So it can't be the halacha. Very good. I now know it's not the halacha. And then he goes on to page 10 to explain why the Vishav HaKohen cannot be the halacha further. Let's read that real quick. We'll make this class the Vishav HaKohen. The underlying assumptions of the Vishav HaKohen. The first point to address, again, page 10, and remember the Vishav HaKohen he's saying is not the halacha because it fell into the paradigm that he prophetically imagined. The first point to address is the idea that Ger Toshav is a status to which a non-Jew converts, a status between that of Jew and non-Jew. Thus, the requirement of Beis Din for a Ger Toshav is analogous to the requirement of Beis Din for conversion to Judaism. So already, do you see a problem? And there's a lot of problems I haven't pointed out yet. But already, Beis Din here cannot be the Jubilee Beis Din because he's saying it's the Beis Din of conversion. If the Beis Din for the Ger Toshav was Jubilee, then you would not be able to have a conversion except in a time of Jubilee. I find that to be problematic. There are some authorities who understand Ger Toshav as Geris L'Chutzayin, a partial conversion, a sort of halfway conversion in Judaism. According to this view, if the Ger Toshav willingly rejects or violates his mitzvahs, he would remain a Ger Toshav and retain his rights in the same way that a convert to Judaism remains a Jew, even if he abandons the 630 mitzvahs. However, the Griz HaLevi. How many of you guys have ever heard me teach or mention the Griz? And the Minchas Asher. How many of you know what the Minchas Asher is? One or two? Why are you guys typing 2 when there's a 24? Did you forget to type the 4 next to your 2? Look in the bottom of the footnotes. Everyone type 24. Why did you not look at the 24? Type 24. Hello? And read 24. Rabbi Asher Weiss, Rabbi Weiss is one of the major poskim of Jewish law today. He is also a Dayan and author of numbers of the law of practice. His Minchas Asher brings his extended summary and analysis of the sources and arguments of both the Greece Halevi and Rav Kahanan, demonstrating that the Greece's reading of these sources is much more in line with the writings of Rishonim and the Rambam in particular. What if I told you in a Morpheus-like meme, right, with the red pill and blue pill? What if I told you that I read the Minchas Asher and printed it out and read what the Minchas Asher spoke about the Greece? What would you say if I told you that? And when he says that the Grizz is the understanding, what if I told you that the Grizz being brought here is different than what it is being brought here? What if I told you I called Rabbi Asher Weiss and spoke to him about this? That story is to be continued because it doesn't flow here. But Lamaisa, this is a side note, Rambam Hilchos Malachim 8, 10, and 11, the entire Ger Toshav Sugya is predicated on that Rambam where he says, if you accept the 7 laws, you're Ger Toshav B'Kol Makom. That's where we're going to be focusing for a while because all of Ger comes there. Rabbi Weiss spoke about that Ger Toshav, and I spoke to him on the phone about that Ger Toshav. And I asked him, is that Ger Toshav speaking about Yovel? And he said, I don't know. Why don't you look it up and let me know? I said, okay. But I read through Minchas Asher, and he also told me, he said, my friend, if I remembered everything I wrote in my Sefer Minchas Asher, the world would be a better place. I said, well, I did look up in Minchas Asher, and I can tell you what you wrote. The point is, in Minchas Asher, he's bringing the Grizz, and they decide that Ger Toshav is not a conversion, as per that particular Rambam in 8, 10, and 11, which everybody says is not a conversion, namely the Lubavitcher Rebbe. So did Minchas Asher disagree with Meshava Cohen? Well, according to Chad. But the Minchas Asher did bring the Grizz, and the Grizz does say it's not a conversion. Why? Because Ger Toshav outside of 8, 10, and 11 is always a Ger L'Chatzayin, a partial conversion, Ksat Geris. But the Rambam's Ger Toshav at 8, 10, and 11 is a completely different non-halachic Ger Toshav. So why would we assume that 8, 10, and 11 is a Ger Toshav when it's not? So, of course, the Grizz and Minchas Asher say it's not a conversion. Now, you're going to say that brings an argument against the Shavak Kohen. And I have to say I'm a bit embarrassed. I am a bit embarrassed. I went so many years without actually having learned the Veshava Kohen. Because you know how number 13 says it has to be quoted by previous and later sources? Type 13. Type 13. Did you know that in the Ger world, the reason why I didn't look up the Veshava Kohen? Because nearly everybody quotes the Veshava Kohen. And I thought I for sure knew the Veshava Kohen because literally everybody quotes the Veshava Kohen. It's like not having looked up the Ritva because everybody talks about the Ritva. But eventually you do have to look up the Ritva. So I did look up the Veshava Kohen. Now go back to page 8. Type 8 when you're on 8. Hurry up, type 8 when you're on 8. Now type 1 or 2. Do you guys understand the Veshava Kohen? If I gave you a quiz, would you be able to tell me what you think is going on with the Veshava Kohen? And therefore there's ramifications if we paskin like him or don't paskin like him. If I told you by quoting that the Veshava Kohen is This proposition made parenthetically in a larger responsum on the laws of business partnerships between Jews and non-Jews rests on the following assumptions. What is that about? If we said the Veshava Cohen, based on that, do you understand what I call that? So that sugya that the Veshava Cohen is talking about, if I am in partnership with a goy in business, can I be in partnership? Because the question is that goy may bring me to make an oath on his idolatrous gods. And I can't do that. So the Taisvis there, in this, there's a Gemara where it's based on, they say no, because Noahides, and today the world is considered Shituf Noahide. A Ben Noach is not commanded to drop Shituf. So if they say, blah, 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 Yeshu, blah, 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 that is not considered Avodah Zorah Mamish. They really believe in God, and you are not committing a crime being in partnership with this goy. So the Veshava Kohen then asks the question, what makes someone a proper Ben Noach? Do they have to reject Shituf or not? And his conclusion is they really should reject Shituf. I got to go over it again inside. It's a very long piece, and it gives every angle, so it's hard to pin down which angle. But he definitely raises the question of Ger Toshav, is the non-Jew. In fact, I remember how he ends it. He ends it by saying, it really can go either way. So obviously, some say a Ben Noach doesn't have to reject Shituf, and some say a Ben Noach should reject Shituf. He's obviously trying to show that they should, but it's inconclusive. And rejection of Shituf would then be a non-Jew should reject Shituf, becoming a Ger Toshav / Chasid Olam, and before a Beis Din. Now, do you see how what I just said is a bit different than what's going on here? Number one, you read this, you're going to think it has to do with partnerships in business, which it's derived from that, but that's not the thrust of the Veshava Cohen. The Veshava Cohen leaves the field in the view that non-Jews should reject Shituf. And he does not conclude that they have to. But if they do, it should be in a Beis Din and be called under the name Ger Toshav. By definition, is the Veshava Cohen talking about Jubilee? No. By definition, is the Veshava Cohen really talking about a conversion in the sense that we're being taught here? Or a partial conversion in the terms that we're talking about here? Is the author here skewing what is based in? In fact, it looks like this author is skewing everything. And then saying we don't poskin like the Veshava Cohen. Well, guess what? The Veshava Cohen didn't poskin like the Veshava Cohen. Veshava Cohen is telling you how something should be. That doesn't make it has to be. He's telling you that this area exists of Ger Toshav Chasid Olam rejecting Shituf by coming before a Beis Din. And the nafkamina is, to be a proper Chasid, you got to be a Ger Toshav, which means reject Shituf. And to be commanded and does. Now, Jacques, you know there's something called Lechachila and B'diavad. He's telling you how to be a Lechachila Noahide, so to speak. Does he talk about B'diavad? Not really. If you want to be B'diavad, be B'diavad. But don't say that they can't be Lechachila. So the entire question of Ask Noah, Pirkei Shoshanim, all of our friends, is wrapped up in this little nugget here. Do I have to be Ger Toshav? Can I be Ger Toshav? Is it okay if I'm not a Ger Toshav? Is Ger Toshav connected to Chasidus Olam? Is it not? Is Ger Toshav the only way of mitzvah v'oseh, commanded and does? Or is there another way? Just being a Noahide also commanded and does. What is the intention I have to have? Is it Moshe giving the Torah? Or Moshe giving the Torah as I stand for based it as a Ger Toshav? Is the Ger Toshav Jubilee? Is it not Jubilee? Do I have to go before based in? Do I have to go for a based in Jubilee? Do I have to go for a based in at all? Which based in? Am I going before based in as a conversion? Or as a half conversion? No conversion? Is this halacha? Is it not halacha? How does halacha work? You hear all the questions. That's all this is about. And in fact, you can summarize the entire discussion as Rambam, Hilchos Malachim, 8, 10, and 11. In fact, you can reduce that by understanding if I'm a good person with the right kavanah, then I'm a chassid. And we all agree on that. The only question is Ger Toshav. Before 3 men. What does that mean? And the Rambam is bringing it from Avodah Zorah 64b. The first opinion and second opinion. That's all this discussion is about. So what our friend Chad has done is bring us the lowest common denominator and calling it halacha. A Noahide, 7 laws, Moshe Rabbeinu gave in the Torah, no based in, make a couple of stretches, which we'll get into, call it commanded and does, there's no Ger Toshav till Jubilee, and what makes that shita work, there's only one way that shita works, is if the Rambam meant Ger Toshav Jubilee. And in fact, if he did mean Jubilee, then their shita is Emes Lamito. And there's only one problem. The Rambam didn't mean Ger Toshav Jubilee. And that is uniform understood. Again, most notably by the Lubavitcher Rebbe. So now, when we go to page 14, better yet, 15. 15. Turn to page 15 and type 15. Turn to page 15, type 15. Most authorities, do you see the 36? And don't think I didn't print out the Or Sameach. And don't think I don't see the Chedushei Agrees there. And don't think in 37, in the footnote, that I didn't look up the Sfanas Paneach. I was not able to find Rav Malkiel Tannenbaum yet. Most authorities who analyze this Rambam conclude that a non-Jew may receive the higher reward of one who is commanded and fulfills. Well, guess what the Chedushei agrees? Our friend agrees. He's talking Ger Toshav. Or Sameach, Ger Toshav. Ger Toshav Jubilee? No. Because that Rambam's not talking Ger Toshav Jubilee. As the Rebbe says, it's not a halachic Ger Toshav. If he accepts the 7 mitzvahs with the conviction that they were transmitted with the Mosaic covenant, just like the Rambam says. However, a non-Jew accepts the 7 mitzvahs, okay. We see from here 2 things. A non-Jew can connect to the Mosaic covenant via the 7 mitzvahs and earn the higher reward of what is commanded if it fails. That's correct. But all the sources are based on that Rambam, and that Rambam calls him Ger Toshav. Number 2, the nature of the non-Jew's reward. Jacques, does reward mean reward? Jacques, does reward mean reward? Or is it an Iker term that is not translated literally? It's an Iker term. Schar mitzvah va'isei, or mitzvah lo mitzvah va'isei. The reward of one who is commanded and does is greater than one not commanded and does. It has nothing to do with reward. It's the level that you're on. Are you commanded and does or not commanded and does? And when you take Ger Toshav Kabbalah, you're commanded and does, says the Grease. And then your Chasidam Musa Olam. It has nothing to do with reward. It has to do with, are you real or not? Or is it a mitzvah or not? Because if you're not commanded and does, then you didn't do anything. So by leaving out Ger Toshav, are you really commanded and does? Maybe the most Betty Evid. But even still, it's still Ger Toshav. I mean, you can not say it all you want. That doesn't mean it's not there. And no one says the way it's written here. Most authorities who analyze this Rambam conclude blah blah blah. They all mention Ger Toshav. Find me a source that says that you're commanded and does. And there is no Ger Toshav. The nature of the non-Jewish reward is not dependent on accepting the 7 mitzvahs as a Ger Toshav. Nobody said you accept them as a halachic Jubilee Ger Toshav, which he is implying we are saying halachically Jubilee Ger Toshav. When it is implied and it is in fact fact. In the Rambam, it is not a halachic Ger Toshav. Rather, it depends on the conviction behind the acceptance. That is true. This understanding sits perfectly with the wording of the Rambam and is the interpretation relied upon by later authorities. Reads Fanas Paneav number 37, and we brought it in the world of the Ger, and he is the Rebbe that gave the Lubavitcher Rebbe smicha. And we've read what the Lubavitcher Rebbe says in the name of the Rogachover Gaon, which is Fanas Paneach. Therefore, the Ritva and Ramban's interpretation cannot be relied practically. How about because he changed Ger Toshav and based it in the Ritva and Ramban to be Jubilee when it's not? And this understanding of the Rambam also undermines the conclusions of the Veshava Cohen. Rav Soloveitchik says that the Rambam, by saying Ger Toshav there, and the Brisker Rav would agree, is that you have to reject Shituf. And that's why Ger Toshav is used. So what kind of nonsense is that? In summary, it is unlikely that becoming a Ger Toshav is a form of conversion. No one said it is. Rather, it pertains only to legal statuses. What the opposition is saying is, why would you want to be called Ger Toshav when it literally will get you nothing? They're viewing it black and white. It's either a conversion, and hey, I want to be a half convert, or it's only a legal status. But when Minchas Asher said it's not a conversion, Legal status in Hebrew is a different term, different Iker term. He's describing legal status as Jubilee, land of Israel. Acceptance of the 7 mitzvahs for base has no effect on the non-Jew status of the Ben Noach. In our times, even a private acceptance of the 7 mitzvahs may be sufficient to render one a ger toshav in regard to residency. Additionally, even when the Jubilee was in full force and accepted for based in and mandated for ger toshav, okay. Number 3 on page 16. There's no need to accept the 7 mitzvahs for based in order to merit as one who is commanded and fulfills. No one said you have to. All the ger toshav sources will tell you a private acceptance does the job as well. Acceptance for a based in is not what garners this merit. It is the conviction that the 7 mitzvahs were affirmed by Moses at Sinai. That's what the Rambam says. You don't have to do it in the name of being some kind of halachic ger toshav. He is just telling you what you are called when you do it the right way. So what is the big fear by Ask Noah and our friends? Number 4. Type 4 when you read 4. There is one more important factor to consider. As we shall see later, there is a severe prohibition of creating a new religion for Noahites. This means that one must use great caution in adopting or innovating practices that are not logically or halakhically defensible. Accepting the 7 mitzvahs for based in may run afoul of this prohibition and should not be done. Number 1, they got L'chadish Dat, inventing the religion, wrong. L'chadish Dat in the Rambam is doing Shabbos like a Jew. Doing religion like a Jew. The ger is not doing religion like a Jew. So the entire do your 7 go to heaven, editing out the ger toshav, Lefim Shuto making it Jubilee, is a prohibition that if we have ger toshav the right way, you might mess it up. And that would constitute a rabbinic prohibition of making a new religion, which they don't even explain correctly. That's like saying, don't leave your house lest you get hit by a running deer or a meteor. The fact is, everybody that spoke about Rambam 8, 10, 11 and ger toshav tells you what it means to be ger toshav chasidam olam, the non-halachic ger toshav. So because somebody may take it out of context and think that they are a halachic ger toshav and Jubilee, yada yada, which no one says that, but because some quacky group might teach that, it's best if we keep them 7 go to heaven, edit out the ger toshav, and anyways, they're still commanded and does. And we'll interpret schar, reward, literally, they get full reward. You don't have to do it anymore, because by doing the minimal, you get everything you buy, even if you were to go for based in as a ger toshav. But since you'll probably mess it up, so we're going to say it's forbidden. And it's like a bonus. It's like a sale. You still get everything. Whereas Rabbi Katz teaches, in the name of the Rishonim and Achronim, copying and pasting, quoting the Rambam 8, 10, 11, ger toshav, non-halachic, non-yovel, as it is taught, what's this called? The ger toshav chasid of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, for lack of better terms. The Rebbe says it's a great mitzvah if you have the zchus to do it. There's nothing stopping one from doing that. So they are allowed to be minimalist and suggest being machmir. I am suggesting emes. Go with the truth. And they are allowed to do their shita. even though it's a made-up shita, because it only exists by making the Rambam's Ger Toshav Lafib Shuto Jubilee, but it's not. That's why all the sources in unison agree on the literal reading of the Rambam, Ger Toshav Chasid, while understanding that it means non-halachic, non-yovel. Now on page 16, read footnote 38. Everyone type 38 when you're there. We're going to close on this point. The primary advocate for requiring non-Jews to appear before Beis Din is Rabbi Yoel Schwartz. Now remember, Chad is saying that it is you should not go before Beis Din, correct? Do not go for any kind of Beis Din. Now he's going to try to say it's a higher Beis Din, but let's pretend that he's not saying that. He's saying don't go for Beis Din. Type 1. Rabbi Schwartz writes, hello, type 1, hello. Rabbi Schwartz writes in his Ma'orech, his story, Shel Kabbalas Manhige, B'nei Noyach es Samchut Beis Hadin HaYehudi B'Yerushalayim. By the way, I printed out this Rabbi Schwartz. We'll read it inside next time. That B'nei Noyach must accept their mitzvahs before a Beis Din, citing the Veshava Kohen. Didn't our friend Chad say that nobody else cited the Veshava Kohen? And if you ask any rabbi today who one of the leading poskim in the Noahide world is, they'll say Rabbi Schwartz. So there's so many contradictions here. Now, I actually disagree with Rabbi Schwartz, and I'll close on that note in a minute. But he concedes that many do not hold this way, writing, and if you explain the words of the Rambam to conclude that B'nai Noah do not need to accept their mitzvah for Beis Din. Nevertheless, acceptance for Beis Din makes them as if they are commanded in the mitzvahs, and their reward is transformed into one who is commanded and does, according to Rabbi Eliashib. Now, I agree with Rabbi Schwartz on that. Why? Because Rabbi Schwartz copied and pasted that. And guess what else Rabbi Schwartz said there? Ger Toshav. And then he also called him, if you don't want to live in the land of Israel, or if you want to just know what is the level of this guy, he says Ben Noach Gamor, which is not the same as he Ben Noach. There are two different madregas. See Rabbi Aaron Soloveitchik. So Rabbi Schwartz is afraid to use Ger Toshav because people will be confused thinking it's halachic. And he uses a lesser rabbinic term, Ben Noach Gamor. The only problem with that is when Rabbi Schwartz does Bate Dinim, he calls them B'nai Noach, which is the same as Noahide, which is not a rejecting Shituf, and it goes against his own Shita. Because a Ben Noach Gamor is the same as the Rambam Ger Toshav Chasid. See Siach Nachum, sees Fanas Paneach. You see how it's semantics and linguistic semantics and all these things and Iker terms? Type 1. Most people, like 99.9% of the laymen, will trip up on these terms every time. And they're setting a net for people to trip up on them. Now, Rabbi Schwartz is pretty good. He writes the emes, but then he's afraid of Ger Toshav because people think it's halachic, and he uses a synonym for Ger Toshav, Ben Noach Gamor, but he teaches it openly as Ben Noach. That's problematic. Now, what about Blumenstiel? It is unclear to what Rabbi Schwartz is referring when he writes according to Rabbi Eliashib. It is absolutely true that accepting the mitzvahs for Beis Din will change the non-Jew's merit for observing the mitzvahs. Everyone would agree to that. Huh? Didn't Chad say that the Noahides cannot go for a based in? One or two? He just said through the whole shear, no based in lest it be seen as making a new religion. Now he's saying everyone would agree to that. After all, so would accepting the mitzvahs privately as long as it is done correctly. And that's what I say. Every single time. I've said the same thing. Now, ready for this is where we're going to end this year. Ready? Without knowing to what exactly Rabbi Eliashib was referring, it is very hard to determine the reliability of Rabbi Schwartz's attribution. This author, which is Blumenstiel, has consulted with relatives and disciples of Rabbi Eliashib, none of whom are entirely certain of Rabbi Schwartz's attribution. Does anybody see the problem with that? As we close on that note, does anybody see a problem with that? What's the problem? Jacques, don't answer. You already know the problem. Anybody else know the problem? One or two. Hurry up. The problem is that Rabbi Schwartz is alive and well, living in Yerushalayim, and the author had no problem to call students and family and friends of Rabbi Eliashib. Why didn't the author pick up the phone and call Rabbi Schwartz and say, "Hi, Rabbi Schwartz, I'm just wondering what you meant when you wrote this halacha because I don't understand it." So it's easier to chop his head off in a footnote in a contrived halakhic system that you pervert with, when the obvious and menschlich answer is, oh, you didn't understand the one of the biggest poskim in the business, what his psak was? Did you ever think to call him and ask him? It should also be stated that Rabbi Schwartz worked with Ask Noah originally, and they fired him because of his work with the Sanhedrin. Do you see my point of what the problem here is? There's something called emes, and there's something called politics, and there's something called corruption, and there's something called machlokus, and there's something called taking things out of context, and there's something called being obscure. The list continues. There's an agenda here. The crucial points are being twisted and turned to achieve an agenda. The agenda is, we don't want you to mess up, so do your 7 and go to heaven, and you still get your olam haba, and you're commanded and does. If you have the right intention that Moshe gave the Torah. Which, you know what? That's not wrong. Except for the fact that it is wrong, based on they have to lie about the Rambam, saying that the Ger Toshav is Jubilee when it's not. But you know what? I'll let you lie. I'll let you lie. You're allowed to lie. Rafim Shuto, I mean, you're really not allowed to lie, but if you want to really twist it, I'll let you. Because that's just how some people are. You could say it's a gezerah, it's a chumrah, whatever. But by doing so, because you're afraid of the word ger toshav, you're denying the Torah, the truth of the Torah, the pashtus of the Rambam, allowing people to reject Shituf, forcing them to be recognized as either better versions of Christians or better ex-Christians. There are people that want to move on to a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And you're saying, we can't let them do that because they'll mess it up. But when these people have reached a level that they know how to reject Shituf, and they know the difference between Beis Din Yovel and what is being presented in the Rambam, and the rabbis have made it that it's impossible to mess it up because there's so many ways of achieving the outcome. It's like they say, shechting a giraffe is hard because we don't know where to shecht. The neck is so long. You know what the answer is on how to shecht a giraffe? You can shecht it anywhere. Every place is possible. The easiest animal in the world to shecht is a giraffe. Some say that's why the gerim are compared to giraffes. I'm joking. And that was a tasteless joke. But the point is that when you learn the Rambam, Hilchos Malachim 8, 10, and 11, and the Ger Chassi, the Chasidus Olam, and the Ger Toshav, the bottom line is it is not a halachic Ger Toshav, Jubilee Ger Toshav. Then you go into all the different things we talked about. Based in, and Shituf, Ger Toshav, Chassi, all those different Iker terms. When you say Ger Toshav Yovel, you deny every Iker term because you're saying Iker terms are just too hard. When you go with what we're saying, learning the Rambam correctly, i.e. Rabbi Soloveitchik's shot on the whole thing, which I am doing nothing more than teaching Rabbi Aaron Soloveitchik's shot, which is the same understanding as everybody that spoke about it. Nobody argues. The difference is you have to know all those Iker terms. So what we've done is we've gone and ironed out and taught and clarified all the Iker terms. Is it easy? No. Is it possible? Yes. Is it 100% possible? Yes. In fact, it doesn't need to be hard. All you have to do is teach the Rambam the right way, and the non-Jew who wants to do that Kabbalah with the right intention, either before any type of based-in, non-halachic, non-yovel, or in his own private quarters, has achieved the outcome of Ger Toshav B'Kol Makom B'Chasidi Omosa Olam, and is on the level of Mitzvah V'Oseh. Now, when you want to discuss the ins and outs of all those different things, it only goes upward. But on the minimalist level, it works anyways. For example, does one have to? Okay, I'm not going to poskin that all the Noahites today have to. But they can. So the only place it goes, like the Vashava Cohen brought, is more stringent. Proper based in, has to, this and that. On the minimal end, it's merciful, which means those that want to can, and those that want to remain Noahites can. But the Noahites are editing out Ger Toshav and making it Jubilee, less to be making it a religion. Making a new religion is an Iker term. It doesn't mean that. And Ger, based in Ger Rambam, is a different Ger Toshav than Jubilee. There's no fear of making a new religion. And again, on that point, see Rabbi Rabinovich in his commentary to the Rambam, who speaks about the Ger Chassid, where there's no fear of making the religion. And there's no prohibition on the Ger Shabbat and learning Torah. And then that becomes a subject of Iker terms, which we've gone into. To be continued, we'll continue with the series next week from a different angle. This is just an introduction. My point is to show truth and to show that there's an agenda on the other side, twisting and corrupting in the Torah of truth. It's a sad state. And you can see for yourselves how the things are twisted. For example, making the Vashava Cohen into something that's not. Making the rejection of Shituf into a type of conversion that it's not. All for the sake of rejecting something of the Rambam, Ger Toshav, to keep people dumbed down, 7 go to heaven, minimalist level, which B'diavad, it can work. But again, you have to distort the Rambam to do that. So does it really work? If you're going to say Lefi Pshuto, lest you're making it a religion, well, you might not want to walk out of your house tomorrow lest you get hit by a meteorite. Therefore, it's an unnecessary chumrah, it's an unnecessary din, and it denies the merciful nature of the Torah and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Thank you very much.